Hey, Mama.
Hey, baby.
How you doing today?
Doing good. How about you?
I'm doing great because today is Friday.
Yes.
All right, we're going to get right into it. All right, for those that are joining us for the first time, tell the people how old you are.
I'm 102 years old, and the last of March, I'll be 103.
Okay. All right. So that means you've seen a lot in your lifetime.
Right.
Right. Okay, and so if you want to know more about it, go back and look at some of the previous videos we posted this week. But today, we're going to talk about, you mentioned that in the early years that y'all did not have a car, right?
Oh, right.
What did you have in the very beginning?
We had a mule and a wagon.
A mule and a wagon.
Right.
All right. Let's talk about the importance of your mule and your wagon. All right. For example, tell me, what did you guys use the mule and the wagon for?
Well, the mule was a handy thing because we had to use them in the garden. We used them up and down the road, and we used them to haul wood and everything. And when we need a ride, the town, we hitch up the mule and the wagon, and all of us get on the wagon, and drive to town to do our little shopping and everything. You tie your mule, and then we had one hour later on the wagon. Long as it's in the woods, they were on the drive. But when it got to the town, they gave me the drive. They didn't want to drive. They didn't want nobody to see them. But I wasn't ashamed because I had a way.
Right. And then, also back then, wasn't most people driving mules and wagons?
Yes, they were.
Excuse me. Okay, so, but she wanted to drive it as long as y'all were out in the woods, but when you got to town, she didn't want people to see her driving.
Didn't want nobody to see her driving that mule.
But really, I'm going to tell you, it was a blessing to have the mule and the wagon because, like you said, you went to town.
Yeah.
And I think I remember hearing that they had places where the mules could drink water, like, when you got there, And so, now, so you use it to go to town, to get your groceries, to do your trading, to come back. Okay. And then we were talking about this earlier. You said another way. You said you and Daddy would take the mule and the wagon into the woods to get what?
The wood.
To get the wood.
The wood.
Right. So, and you would bring the wood back home, and then cut it up.
Yeah, we had a saw. You on one end and I'm on the other end, and we sawing that wood.
Okay, so that brings up another point. I mean, I'm just discovering so many things. So instantly, if you're a younger person, you were thinking you bought the wood back and you use a chainsaw, but you didn't have a chainsaw back then. So you had like the saw that you were talking about where two people was, or an axe, right?
You're right.
Okay, because I remember us using the axe, and I remember the other saw. So you saw the wood down short enough to go into the fireplace.
Right.
Because at that time, that's where you was cooking on top of the fireplace.
Right.
Okay. And so later you mentioned that y'all had gotten a wood heater, right?
Right.
Okay. So now, how did you have to cut that wood a different, like?
We had to cut it a length to go in the heater.
So you had to cut it shorter.
To cut it shorter, because you couldn't put no longer and you have it hanging out. You got to cut it short.
Now, I remember also, like growing up, is that you would get your wood, but then you would get it and stack it so it could dry out, right?
Well, when we got our heater, got our cooking stove, we had to, we cut it in chunks, and then we have to bust it. And we bust it and lay it out, and that way the sun can get to it and dry it out quicker.
Right, because the green wood is harder to burn. It takes longer.
You have to have something dry to put under there to get it hot.
Right.
And then it'll
so
start to burn.
You let the wood, you cut it early, you stack it, and let it season, let it dry out, And so that way it could burn. You know, I remember when we went to visit my brother-in-law, your son-in-law, in North Carolina, and you used a term that he was so tickled about, and that was, what did we used to call that big wood that we put on the back?
Backstick.
A backstick. And he was like, that's the right word. So the backstick was the big piece of wood.
Big piece of wood.
Right. Because when you went to sleep, you put a backstick on the fireplace, and it would burn slow. Because otherwise you were getting up having to feed that fire, and you didn't want that, right?
Well, I tell you what we doing. We would take that backstick, we would burn it down to a little chunk, and then we would put it, take it and put the ashes back, and put the chunk under there, and then we will cover the chunk up with the ash. And when you get up in the morning time, there you got the coals under there.
Right. So that that way you didn't have to go out and try to rebuild a fire. Because I remember when we were growing up, that was part of the boys. They always had to go out and they would cut pine, cut the kindling, get the wood in that night. And I remember many times Daddy making the boys get up because they had a ball game or something and they didn't get the wood that he would need, to start the fire, because you would get up early in the morning to cook breakfast.
Well, you take a reason that ready to get out there and play. Get out there and play, and when they get out there and play, they wouldn't get the work done. Wouldn't cut the pine, wouldn't cut the wood. And so one night, Daddy came in there, and there wasn't no wood on the porch, and wasn't no pine in there. He got them up out the bed. They had done went to bed at 12 o'clock at night. He got them up out the bed, and you could hear them axe talking back to you.
They're out there cutting that wood.
Out there, cut the wood, busting the pine. Up before he'd get up in the morning and start the fire.
And also, and the point is behind that is because you normally got up at 4 o'clock in the morning because you would cook breakfast, you would make the biscuits, and you would fix Daddy's lunch because Daddy was leaving so that he could be at work at 5:30. So the way we made this work is everybody played their part. And so it was a great lesson for the boys. I know a lot of you guys may be thinking, okay, that sounds cruel. It wasn't. Because everybody understood what their role was. And if you didn't do your part, it affected the next person.
Right.
So part of the boys was that they had to get the wood cut up, put it on the back porch, and put some inside so that when Daddy got up, because Daddy got up before you got up, Daddy would get out of the bed, in the morning, 4 o'clock, make that fire for you. So that when you got up, the fire was already done. Daddy would get up out of bed, make the fire for you. And then when he was going to get dressed, you would go make the biscuits and stuff like that to make his
lunch.
Yeah, and then Daddy would go to work because Daddy was so hard working, because sometimes he worked like 2 jobs. So for the boys, it was crucial that they played their part. All right, and so I know we sort of got off the thing, but I'm glad we went there. But I want to go back to the mule. We mentioned also, so we used the mule to go to town to get your supplies. You also use the mule and wagon to go in the woods to get wood to heat the house. And then, what was the other way that you used your mule?
We had to use the mule to plow our whole field of plant stuff, our garden. Plow the garden up, then he dist it, and then he would make the rows for us to plant our stuff in that row and everything. And he done everything with the mule. He had to plow the field and everything. And it was a hard way for us to go, because when we got big enough, we had to go down and hoe in that field.
Because your mule, at one point your mule died, right?
The mule died. And when mule died, this Johnson grass, it'll grow fast, grow up high.
It does.
And so when the mule died, it was Johnson grass in the field, and we had to hoe, and we had to take that hoe and dig that root up and pile it up in pile and everything, pile it up in pile. And then when we got through and everything, a horn, and then he'll take some paper or something, put up under the roots and set them fire and burn them up. Because when you horn, if you cut a piece of root off,
it's gonna grow back.
It'll grow back.
Right. Okay, all right. So that's what we're talking about tonight, guys, because we're going to stop right here because I want to talk about the mule and the wagon and how essential it was in early life. Right. And then, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about, it may not be tomorrow because we might go outside tomorrow, but we're going to talk about what it was like when you got your first car and how you learned to drive your first car. But we're going to save that for another episode. So guys, we thank you for watching us today, and we thank you guys for supporting us. Yes. And so we ask that you like this video, comment on this video, and be sure to share this video. And that's it for today. And we say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.